20 minutes into the future, a virtual celebrity powered by cutting-edge AI pairs up with the investigative journalist that provided the brain scan that powers that AI to solve the most future of mysteries. This is the history of
Max Headroom.
Specifically, this episode is about the US version of the Max Headroom TV show, which ran for 2 seasons from 1987 through to 1988. We're going to be giving the first episode of Season 2 some particular attention, as well as discussing some of the characters and themes. In the future, TV networks are tech giants that essentially function as totalitarian corporate government, and broadcast TV is the absolute dominant medium. Edison Carter, working as a maverick investigative journalist for the biggest of the TV networks, Network 23, discovers that their new advertising technology, blipverts, is causing some viewers to spontaneously explode. When the network heads realize that Carter is aware of the cause of these mysterious deaths caused by blipverts, they have him pursued. He crashes his motorbike in a parking garage, and the last thing he sees is the sign Max Headroom on the garage gate. To discover what Edison Carter knows about blipverts and who he has told, the network has his brain scanned. This brain scan achieves full sentience and escapes, taking on the last thing Carter saw as its name, Max Headroom. This show has everything you might expect from an 80s cyberpunk-inspired show. Extreme sports, people trying to upload their consciousness, recordings of dreams sold as entertainment, advertising delivered via brain implants, and of course hackers. Oh, the hackers. By 1987 in the US, hackers were firmly ingrained in pop culture. The TV show WizKids, which we did a previous episode on, has been and gone. The movie War Games has sparked an explosion in the hacker BBS scene, and groups of hackers like the Dalton Gang, the 414s, and the Inner Circle have had high-profile arrests that featured heavily in the news. Hacking as portrayed in Max Headroom reminds me a little of modern video games like Watch Dogs. It's a lot of line-of-sight, wireframe represented device to wireframe represented device communication, and terminal text continually scrolling on monitors.
Those are A7's instructions being carried out. What we need to do is get our instructions recognized. We'll go in under their radar, so to speak, with very low power. That way we won't activate a feedback loop. Transmitting a very high-speed series of alphanumeric characters. And you see how they bounce off?
I'm not getting through a discussion of Max Headroom and hacking, especially TV-related hacking, without mentioning the real-life, infamous broadcast signal intrusion that took place in Chicago, Illinois, on the night of November 22nd, 1987.
In Chicago television stations, someone using sophisticated equipment managed to briefly and illegally override broadcast signals on WGN TV and WTTW. Jack Connolly reports now that both incidents are under investigation.
Even in a medium that is no stranger to bizarre moments, these were truly bizarre. Starting first on WGN TV at 9:14 Sunday night during a sportscast.
12 quarters finally did.
Take some pretty sophisticated microwave equipment operating in the broadcast auxiliary frequency bands and a significant amount of power.
About 2 hours later, the video pirate struck again. This time, the target was a science fiction broadcast on PBS affiliate WTTW. And this time, it wasn't 25 seconds long. It ran for almost a minute and a half. By this time, the pirate had managed to insert audio as well, along with a display of a marital aid and a portion of his or her anatomy. It generated hundreds of calls.
So consider that covered now. If you want to learn more, there are a ton of videos about both the signal intrusion itself and theories as to who might have done it and how. Back to the actual Max Headroom show. Season 2, Episode 1 is titled Academy and revolves around unknown people zipping Network 23's satellite signal broadcast feeds. Zipping here meaning something between hijacking, interrupting, and hacking. People who do this are known as zippers. It is worth noting that 2 months after this episode aired, the Chicago signal intrusion that we just looked at occurred. Here's what the fictional version in this episode looked like.
Reg, come here. Reg!
Max, though. It's those zippers again. They must have a hell of a setup.
I'm going to talk a little about the main characters in Academy before we run through the plot itself. First off, of course, we have Edison and Max, who started out as the same person before future tech got involved. Max is Edison without his grounding in reality or his desire for civility and order. Max sees the real world as reflected in TV shows and therefore inhabits a hyper-reality where the normal rules that others live by just don't apply to him. Edison, for his part, is an experienced field reporter, a top-notch investigator who cares about the plight of people on the edges of society. Carter has an amazing ability to infiltrate organizations and penetrate conspiracies through a combination of guile, guts, and charm.
You know, I get the feeling there's a lot of faces out there watching me.
Bryce Lynch, aka actor Chris Young, was a child genius who became a precocious and prodigious computer hacker. He is Network 23's one-man technology research and computer engineering department. Bryce sees life as one big ethical grey area. In a stereotypically hacker way, this means Bryce has few principles and even fewer loyalties. He generally accepts any task, even morally questionable ones, as long as he is allowed to have the freedom to play with technology however he sees fit. This moral ambiguity makes him a great resource for the technological needs and demands of the network and the whims of its executives. In general though, Bryce tries not to really hurt others, making him an uncannily neutral character in the Max Headroom universe. He and Max get along very well in the show. I see them as two sides of the same technological trickster coin, viewing the world through a more abstract lens from behind screens.
What about right and wrong?
Non-empirical concepts.
Theora Jones is played by Amanda Pays and first appeared in the original British-made television pilot for Max Headroom. Along with Matt Frewer and W. Morgan Shepherd, Pays was one of only 3 cast members to also appear in this American-made adaptation. Theora is Network 23's star controller, helping guide reporters on the ground wirelessly from the TV network offices, steering them through buildings using online maps, accessing security camera footage to keep them safe, and databases of information to keep the reporter ready for anything that might happen as a story breaks live. Theora works with the network's star reporter, Edison Carter, often helping save the day. One of the main characters in the episode, Academy, is recurring cast member W. Morgan Shepherd as Blank Reg. Reg is a blank, a person not indexed in the government's extensive databases and lacking banking credit. He broadcasts the pirate TV station Big Time Television Network from a bus with his partner Dominique, played by Conchetta Tomei. He doesn't just run the station though, he's also the on-air voice of Big Time Television, with his flair for nostalgia and the tagline, all day every day, making tomorrow seem like yesterday. Reg's partner Dominique, or Blank Dom, manages the business aspects of running the station and provides a voice of reason that offsets Reg's more reckless and impulsive tendencies. Finally, we have Network 23. Network 23 isn't just a corporation within the show, it is one of the main antagonists, setting in motion a lot of the episode's plots. Network 23 simultaneously employs Edison Carter and loves the ratings his intrepid journalism generates, but also regularly works against his attempts to reveal the truth. Having ruthlessly dealt with their main competitors, Network 23 is in a position to exert huge political power, banning the manufacturing of televisions with off switches and exerting massive influence over the TV adult citizens of the future. The only thing that the Network 23 board executives fear is the wrath of advertisers and the loss of ratings. Spoilers ahead for this particular episode of a TV show that is, admittedly, about 35 years old now. So as we covered, Academy is about someone zipping Network 23's transmissions and interfering with their signal. Network 23 demand that Bryce locate the zippers, and after a short investigation he tells the board that he has tracked the zipping to Blank Reg and the Big Time Television Network bus. Reg is raided and taken into custody. Dominique gets in touch with Theora and Edison and pleads with them to find the real culprit, as they all agree that Blank Reg would not have done this. Edison goes to Metro Jail 42 where Reg is being held. When he arrives, Reg is talking to his lawyer via video link and protesting his innocence. It is at this point that the most highly rated judge appears on a small TV screen which is wheeled out into the room by officers. Once the judge realizes Reg is a blank, he states that Reg must instead go to video court to go on trial there. Reg's lawyer spins a wheel to choose the day of the trial, which winds up giving her only 1 day to prepare any kind of defense.
You believe me, don't you, old son?
Yeah. You didn't, you couldn't, and you wouldn't. The question is, who did?
Back at the Network 23 control room, Theora reviews Bryce's findings and retrieves files of evidence that Bryce had moved to the purge directory, think recycling bin. Meanwhile, Max and Bryce are talking.
Did it work?
What?
Switching the coordinates.
How on earth did you know?
I happen to be flitting about the mainframe, and I just watched the show.
Theora has managed to recover the originally detected coordinates of the mysterious zippers. It's the Academy of Computer Sciences. Edison notes that Bryce himself is a former student. Edison and Bryce arrive at the Academy of Computer Sciences and begin looking around. Edison speaks with the head sysop of the Academy about the zipping incident.
really expect the guilty party just to march right into your office?
Of course. We instill the morality of binary absolutes here, Mr. Carter. The useful consequence of pure logic is the divine simplicity of a yes-no decision about everything.
You know, what about right and wrong? I noticed you said responsible party, not guilty.
Oh, gray areas, quite useless to a computer specialist. We don't deal in guilt. We deal in information. That is why the appropriate party will be with us shortly. You will see.
Blank Reg's appearance in Video Court is a perfect distillation of reality TV-style court simulation shows, both at the time and now, the original being The People's Court, which began broadcasting in the US in 1981.
Welcome to Network 23's award-winning game show, You, the Jury.
These are the Metro Cops. They caught Blank Reg in the act.
Reg's televised trial for zipping also really reminds me of a TV-friendly version of the satirical TV segments from the original RoboCop movie and parts of The Running Man. Although the US version of Max Headroom aired the same year as both of those movies were released, it is worth noting that the original concept of Max Headroom predates both by 4 years. There are some other interesting parallels with RoboCop. The protagonists in both, Edison Carter and Alex Murphy, are killed, or almost killed, in the course of their work, and both are fused in some way with technology to continue that work. Back to the Academy though. The rest of the episode is about Edison solving the mystery of who, at the Academy of Computer Sciences, is responsible for zipping Network 23. Issues of morality and ethics are heavily explored, and how someone raised from an early age to think about the world in terms of abstract computer concepts can grapple with seeing the world as something more than one giant moral grey area. Yes, this video has accidentally become a bit of a meta-commentary on hacker ethics as seen through the prism of 80s cyberpunk talking heads.
Allows him to be better off by keeping quiet. I mean, what good is a system if it doesn't work properly?
Oh, I hate to be the one to break this to you, Bryce, but life is more than just interactive systems analysis.
Not really. It's a matter of information. Once we understand and collate our ideas, life will be much simpler, really. It's a matter of number crunching.
It's not just more complicated. Look, life is based on something more than just logic. It's based on feelings.
Eventually Bryce works through his minor moral awakening and manages to trick the real culprits, a pair of Children of the Damned style Academy of Science students, into zipping Network 23 during Reg's televised trial, conclusively proving Reg's innocence. The ACS students themselves escape any consequences for their interference with broadcast signals, so although Bryce intervenes to help Reg, in a way he has maintained his relative neutrality by simply restoring the status quo. I find it interesting that the phrase "I am the cracker" appears on TV screens during the zipping attacks. I see this as either a reference to the Inner Circle hacking group member, the Cracker, who wrote a tell-all book after being busted in 1983, or perhaps a nod to the crackers are not hackers argument that has been steadily raging on since the 1980s. The concept of Max Headroom was inspired by, among other things, satirical 70s movie The Network and early 80s sci-fi masterpiece Blade Runner. But in many ways it was a unique idea, well ahead of its time. Max Headroom eventually flared out after a few years of heavy media saturation in the US. Though I think this show and the character himself continue to exert heavy influence in shaping our very 80s inspired concept of what cyberpunk is in pop culture. It almost goes without saying, in the eternally recycled and cyclical nature of hacker in-jokes and references, that of course Max Headroom inspired imagery that appeared in early anonymous videos relating to Chanology in 2008. If you've never seen the show and like cyberpunk as a genre, I highly recommend checking it out. You can find the original UK show and episodes of the US run right here on YouTube, as well as clips from interviews, spin-offs and other Max appearances over the years. Should I return to this show at some point? Are there other cyberpunk themed shows that involve hackers or hacking? Hit up the comments or follow Real Hack History on Mastodon and Twitter, links in the video description, to voice your opinions and suggestions for the future of this channel. Thanks again for tuning in, and please consider liking and subscribing.
Got to be stopped.
This is dangerous. If they can break into our carrier that easily, nothing's safe.
Our bank accounts, our medical records.
Never mind that. What about ratings?